All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Fruit Basket, my weekly podcast. Where today we're going to be doing a little bit of a special episode where we are going to be ranking the champions of WWE in 2024 on a tier list. So I got this tier list right here of all the champions from 2024, including champions from NXT, Raw, and SmackDown. We're just going to go through them, and we'll start off with like the mid-card titles, but overall, I just want to say, in terms of WWE in 2024, I feel like it's been a pretty strong year. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, but overall, a pretty strong year. But let's see how the champions did this year. And now, when I talk about these championship reigns, some of them obviously started, in 2023. Some of them ended this year, 2025. But we're just going to talk about each of these reigns, like in the time span of 2024. So while some people's reigns might have started way before 2024, maybe even in 2022, we're still just going to talk about their time as champions in the year 2024. So first off, we're going to start off with the champions of the NXT Heritage Cup, starting off with Noam Dar, who started off the year as NXT Heritage Cup champion. Now, in my opinion, this is kind of when the championship kind of died down a bit, because during the first year of it, they were really trying to get it over because it was still like something that was taken from NXT UK after that ended, but not enough people really knew about it. It was like their mid-card championship there. They wanted to bring it over. They brought it over with Noam Dar. They tried to set the rules with it. They tried to do, tournaments with it. But the time that 2024 came around, I think people just, you know, I don't know if enough people cared for it, but I think people really saw a lot with Noam Dar and Metaphor going forward. So I think this is why they mostly took the title off of him, because I'm trying to think like did he do in 2024 with the title? I think he like this was just off the feud that he had with Alpha Academy with like Tozawa and Gable. So he wasn't doing much. Um I mean Metaphor was still pretty good. We haven't seen him since, unfortunately. But it feels like I don't know, like a lot of the stuff I can remember about his reign came from 2023. Like Gable, his feud with Dunn, Dragon Lee, the Frazier stuff, that all happened in 2023, and I feel like in 2024 you could tell they just didn't really have that many plans afterwards. So I'm just gonna go with I don't know. I'll go with C because he was always entertaining on NXT TV. I'd love to see him pop up again soon, hopefully. I know he had to go away because of injury, but we'll see. Charlie Dempsey, I had a little bit more hope for when it came to this reign, but I've kind of been let down. But I do like when they sprinkle him in every now and again. I feel like he's really been able to showcase a lot more of himself ever since like Ren Sinclair joined the group. I was hopeful. I was hopeful that like with Ren Sinclair's performance at Deadline, that maybe we were gonna see more of this group, especially with the tag team title match. But outside of the King feud, this hasn't been going anywhere really. I think they're having a rematch on NXT for this title, but outside of that, like there was the Tony D'Angelo feud. There was a weird rule that they had when Gulak was still part of the faction where any member of the No Quarter Catch crew could defend the cup, but it was obvious like Charlie was the one who was the champion. I don't know. I would have to say C as well. Like I like when he shows up, but they haven't done much with him. Tony D'Angelo, can't really remember anything with this reign, honestly. Just gonna put this here. All I remember is that this was just when they were feuding. Because in storyline, they had it so that D'Angelo and his family were the reason why Drew Gulak was no longer a part of No Quarter Catch Crew because they murdered him. That was it. That's the only thing I can remember. That's the only thing about this I can remember. And Lexus King, I like what they've been doing with him, but this is a reign that's still going on. He won it in December. And it's been kind of messy because he won it by DQ, and the title can change hand by DQ, but they did this whole thing with it. I'm not sure. I would just put D because we haven't seen, it was only like a few weeks that he held this in 2024. So, there's not a lot that came out of that. And then we move over to the NXT Women's North American Championship with Kalani Jordan, the first ever champion. And I feel like she did a really good job establishing this title in her first reign. She wasn't really a part of anything serious. I believe her first serious feud was with Wendy Chu, and it was fine. And then she obviously got into a feud with Fatal Influence. I think she did a good job really settling, like setting the tone for what this championship could have been during a time when Roxanne Perez was the women's champion and was facing a lot of like challengers from, other companies, newcomers, stuff like that, like a lot of rookies. She was really there just to set the tone for, give a title opportunity to everyone else. And I would say definitely B, because while I feel like none of the stuff she really got into, like her big feuds didn't really feel all that big, she still had excellent title defenses. And then she lost the title to Fallon Henley, who I feel like really was able to stand out a bit when there was that big like women's feud in October where, Zarya, Stephanie, Julia, that 10-woman tag in the ECW arena. I feel like she was able to really showcase her prominence there, and it really came down to like, well, who's gonna face, like who's gonna go after Roxanne, and then who's gonna go after Fallon. But I feel like lately, it feels like a lot of like, who's up next for the title has been kind of separated from her a bit. I don't know, like she and the rest of Fatal Influence have been like feuding with Shotzi, Gigi, and Tatum's group, and now we know Shotzi's the number one contender, but they also had like a number. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like she's a bit separated from the title scene as of late, but it seems like they're getting back around to it. I don't know. I feel like some people might honestly forget that this title even exists now, because probably just because it doesn't get defended that often now. I feel like I don't remember the last time was defended. It felt like Zarya was going after it at one point, but then that never happened. So I'm not sure. I don't know. Because I do like what's been going on with Fatal Influence, but again, I don't feel it's one of those cases where like I like what's going on, but the belt doesn't feel that important. I'll at least say C. And then Dragon Lee. Again, we're just talking in the time span of 2024, so he only held this for like a few days because he lost it right at the beginning of 2024. So we probably will just have to put this in D. If we would have count, his time with the belt in 2023, probably like C. But D, I think it's fair. Because he ended up dropping the title to Opafemi, who had one hell of a year with the North American Championship. I mean, where else should I put him except for here? Obviously S tier. The first one in S tier. His reign has just been great, filled with people from the main roster and people from NXT. He's had great matches, such as his triple threat match with Dijak and Briggs. His matches with Wes Lee. Even his matches with like Tony D'Angelo were really, really good. Like he's just had really good matches overall. Well, hopefully his NXT championship reign is somewhat like this reign, because it was just incredible. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, just watch one of his matches and you'll understand why he's in S tier. And then we have Tony D'Angelo, North American Championship. Now, this one's a weird one, because I do want to put it. I do like that they had him defended against Nunzio, of all people, with the ECW arena. But I feel like ever since he beat Femi, outside of the Nunzio match of all things, like his feud with the Spears faction and Ridge Holland, and the Ridge Holland thing came like, in the last few weeks of December, but like his feud with the Spears faction, I just don't really care for. I feel like this is a very wasted opportunity with Tony, where you could like, he's one of the original, like when NXT rebranded to NXT 2.0, he was like one of the 4 top guys. It was him, Waller, Hayes, and D'Angelo. No, not Hayes and Breaker. But like, I feel like they could do the opportunity with this where like he kind of helps build up some, mid-title guys. But like Josh Briggs, like what has Josh Briggs been doing? Like he said he was gonna formulate a tag team with some guy who came over from Pro Wrestling Noah, and now but they're barely seen. Maybe one of the Gallus boys, even though I don't care that much about them. Like they could have done something with this. outside of the just like him feuding with Spears a bit, which feels like it's just gonna go nowhere, hopefully, because like who cares? I would have to say I wish Dijak was still on the show because I feel like their feud for this title would be pretty fun. Just because it's been pretty lackluster, I'd probably say C, even though I am glad that Tony D'Angelo finally has a singles championship. Next, we go to the first ever United States Women's Champion, Chelsea Green. And I think she just had her first title defense like earlier this month. So really, in December, she didn't do much except for set up for that title match. But I still think, I still want to put her either in B or C because she's the first ever champion, the first ever like main roster women's midcard champion. I'll put it in C because again, she won it pretty late into the year, so she wasn't able to do much. And they just had their first title match, but it's New Year, so that does count. I'll at least put it in C, but I enjoy what, I'll put her in B. Because I'm thinking about like these reigns, and I feel like what she did in a few weeks, like with her celebration and stuff like that, was more entertaining than a lot of what's been going on in these reigns, so I'll at least put her here. Then we had Logan Paul's United States Championship. While he was holding this title, he feuded with Kevin Owens. He qualified for the Elimination Chamber. He retained the title at WrestleMania against Randy Orton, Kevin Owens. Was beaten by Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel and then lost to LA Knight. He held this for over half a year. And he didn't do much. And the stuff that he did do wasn't that great. I don't know, like there was fun matches in there, like the WrestleMania match and the Elimination Chamber match, but I can't even remember that much of the Crown Jewel match. And his match at SummerSlam was pretty okay with LA Knight. I don't know, like a mid-card title should not be on a part-time wrestler. I don't know, like the stuff that he did, especially his LA Knight feud, was fun, but I might have to put I'm gonna have to put this in D. Because honestly, sometimes that title just felt like it didn't exist. Then LA Knight, and I don't know if people would hate this or not, but I'll probably put this in C. Because it felt like a lot of his feuds were just either very mid or like didn't really need him in there. Like the Carmelo Hayes Andrade feud. Like, it just felt like, oh, we're just continuing this feud and then we're just shoving LA Knight in the middle of it. But other than that, like, I don't know, it felt like a kind of weak start to his mid-card title reign. I feel like he's doing better now that he's getting involved in Bloodline stuff. So I don't know, it was a bit of a, I wouldn't say downhill, but a damp, I think that's what the phrase is. Like, it wasn't a great reign, but it was alright. Like, that triple threat match at Crown Jewel was really fun, but I wouldn't, say that LA Knight was the reason that it was fun. So I'll just put him in C. And then Shinsuke Nakamura, it feels like, I don't know, I'd probably put this in D, because again, this reign just kind of feels like, okay, when are we putting the title back on LA Knight? And it doesn't feel like it's going to go anywhere outside of that. So I'm going to have to put this here, even though I do like his new presentation a bit. Again, it just feels like he's only really there in the same role that he was with Seth Rollins like last year. Like in 2023, where he's really just there to be this guy's villain and not really do anything. So I don't know, I'd have to put him in D. I was excited at first for him winning the championship, but when it became clear that it's really only in service of LA Knight, I was just kind of like, yeah. Like, I was hoping it would probably, like, start a feud with, like, him and Andrade, and then Andrade would take the title off him, but it just seems like he's just there to be a foil for LA Knight. And then we have Gunther's reign, and now again, this one started in 2022. We're just talking about his time as champion in 2024. And from what I remember of this, is that he feuded with, like, Jey Uso. I don't remember much of his title reign out. I don't know. Because he already had his feud with Gable in 2023. I forget what did he do as champion in 2024? Like, I know he had a match against Jey Uso. I'm pretty sure he had a match against Kofi Kingston. But I'm going to put him, at least during his time as 2024 champion for the IC title, as A. If we were to count everything else, it would be S tier. But I'm going to put A because, again, he always had great matches when he defended his title. But also, I really liked the Sami Zayn story they were telling, up till WrestleMania with Gunther. So I'd had to put this in A because it was just really fun TV. His defenses against Kingston and Uso were really fun. So I just had to put them up there. Then we have Sami Zayn, which might, I don't know. It feels kind of similar to the LA Knight reign in a factor of like Sami never felt like a big part like of the story because it felt like most of the focus was on Gable splitting up from Alpha Academy. So I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know. His feud with Breaker was okay. I feel like he should have lost the title to Breaker at Money in the Bank, because that match wasn't that great anyways. Unfortunately, these two, like Sami and Breaker, unfortunately just didn't have that great of chemistry with one another. I don't know. I would have also liked to seen him, feud with other people other than Gable, like Dragunov a bit. I don't know. It just would have been more entertaining, and I feel like it was very let down by the fact that they obviously wanted to focus on Gable more but they never gave him the championship too. So I don't know. I would have to put him in C. Like, there was some pretty good defenses overall, but again, it didn't feel that important. And then Braun Breaker, this one I feel a little disappointed by too, because like they put the championship on him, they set up a tournament for him, and then he loses the first one, gains it back in the rematch, has a really cool feud with Sheamus and Kaiser, and doesn't do much for December. He really doesn't. Like I don't know, like what was he doing? Like he was feuding with Kaiser, but I'm pretty sure most of that stuff wasn't even on TV. Like you had to go on Twitter to find that out. Unfortunately, I'd have to probably put this in C too. I just wish they would put more of a focus on him. I really like the Sheamus Kaiser match. I was hoping that would put like more of a rocket on him, but I don't know. I'm a little disappointed. I feel like they haven't really been doing great when it comes to mid-card titles this year. And then we have Jey Uso, his IC title reign. I'd at least put this in B, because it was a surprise win. I don't think many people thought he was going to actually win this. Like, when he did hold it, it did feel important, but I think that's just because, Jey Uso was one of the bigger stars on Raw. So, I'm not sure. I would have to put it in B, though. I mean, he only had, like, one successful title defense, to my knowledge. I think that was against Woods. But overall, I mean, it felt the most important on him than it did with Sami or Braun. And he only held it for like less than a month. So yeah, I would have placed it there. And next up, we're looking at the tag team titles, starting off with the NXT Tag Team Championships, starting off with the D'Angelo family. Now, I actually really liked this tag team run. I thought it was really fun. It went for a lot longer than I thought it was going to. And unfortunately for 2024, they didn't. It was like during the end of the run, obviously. They were going to lose to whoever won the Rhodes Tag Team Classic. So there wasn't much to this feud. I think they only really feuded with OTM a bit during the start of 2024, but I don't remember. So I would have to I'd probably place them in D. Again, if we were counting their like 2023 run, they would definitely be up there, probably like in B. But they just didn't do much in 2024, during the start of it. Shortly after this, D'Angelo would go on to become a singles wrestler again, and who's that guy? Luca Cruzifino would join the faction. So yeah, they weren't really doing much. It was obvious they just wanted to move D'Angelo onto a singles wrestler. But they did hold the title. They did pass down the titles to good hands with the Wolf Dogs. And I just gotta put them in A. Like, this was such a surprise for me. Because when Braun Breaker lost the NXT Championship, I was just waiting for him to move up to the main roster. And it felt like every single month that passed, every single feud he was in, those chances were just being lowered and lowered and lowered. And like after Deadline, like NXT Deadline, where he was in the Iron Survivor Challenge, I was like, all right, this is it. You're not going to put him on NXT, just move him up to the main roster now. and they didn't. And I was like, okay, what are we doing? And then they're like, okay, we're gonna pair him up with Baron Corbin, and they're gonna go into the Tag Team Classic. And I was like, okay, fine, we'll see how this goes. And I thought it was just gonna be like, they lose like a semifinal match and then they feud with one another. No, they win it, and they're one of the most entertaining teams on the show. And it was just so good. It revitalized Corbin's career for a bit. It was just, they were just having matches of the night every night. It was just so good. And when they retained as Stand and Deliver, I was surprised. I was like, but Breaker's already on the main roster a bit now, because like he's been doing squash matches. Where are they gonna go with this? And they had them drop to Fraxium anyways, which I thought was weird. Just have them drop at Stand and Deliver. But whatever. Speaking of Fraxium, I gotta put them in S tier. They're probably the best tag team of the year, bar none. Like any promotion, they are the tag team of the year. Because like it's amazing when you think about the NXT tag team division and how great their reign has been for how underutilized that division is. Because they've had great matches overall, whether it's against the Rascals, MSK, which is the kind of same, but like their match against Chase U, whether it's Chase and Hudson or Chase and Holland, their matches against like New Quarter Catch Crew, like at Deadline, it was incredible. Like they've just been having great matches over like every single time they are in that ring, and you just gotta give them their flowers. Even though again it's a very underutilized division, they have made it one of the most watchable tag team divisions. So I feel like they had to be in S tier just for that. And then finally, we have Chase U with Andre Chase and Ridge Holland. Now here's the thing. I'm a Chase U fan, okay? I love Chase U. I was so sad that it was over. I would have to put it in D, because as much as I loved that they finally won the titles, even if it was Ridge Holland and not Duke Hudson, I was kind of like, just let this last. Just let this last at least like a week or something, okay? And no, they lost the titles immediately, just like Chase U did the last time when it was Hudson and Chase, but nope. I guess I can't get what I want. And this would end up with them, dropping the titles, Chase U dissolving. I don't know. I would have to put it in D. And then we have the Women's Tag Team Championships. We got Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. I mean, they lost the titles very quickly to the Kabuki Warriors. They barely had any defenses that I can remember, and they haven't been utilized the entire year after this. So we'll just have to put them there. And speaking of Kabuki Warriors, I would probably have to put them in C, because they were at least given prominence for like holding them, because you got Kairi Sane and Asuka. You need to use these two whenever you do. But it felt pretty obvious with like the other Damage Control feuds going on that they weren't the center of it, and they were more than likely going to drop the titles to Bianca and Jade anyways afterwards. So it just didn't really feel that important. They just kind of felt like placeholders for a bit until post WrestleMania. And speaking of Jade and Bianca, I feel like these titles could have meant a lot more if it wasn't so obvious that this is just a placeholder until they can do a Bianca Jade feud. And I don't know how I feel about it. Like immediately after they won these titles, they both got put into the Queen of the Ring tournament. Like no tag team feud, just a singles tournament. And I don't think that was a good move. It felt like the titles didn't really matter. And honestly, when the Unholy Union, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn won them, I was like, thank God. Okay, like now we can put some prominence to it. It did feel more prominent. It felt like they were really like trying to build up at least somewhat of a women's tag team division. And I feel like they have tried somewhat since, but I don't know. It always feels like they're just starting and stopping wherever they go with this division. I don't know, but at least with Jade and Bianca, they're gonna be on TV because they're prominent, fixtures of WWE TV right now. I would have to go with B. Like I have my problems with it, but they're still being showcased. We'll just see where this goes. Unholy Union, I was hoping this would last longer. I'll at least put in C just because I enjoyed the fact that they actually gave them the titles even for a short bit. That it seemed like there was going to be some, prominence to the women's tag team division, but I guess not. Then we have the tag team titles, starting off with Judgment Day. 2024, I think before they lost the titles, they only really defended the titles against like DIY and New Catch Republic. And they were pretty fun matches. I like the feud with like R-Truth. It was pretty fun overall. I'd at least put them in A. I thought it was pretty fun. Building up to WrestleMania, they really wanted to focus them on them as a tag team, and I think they did a pretty good job. Then we have A-Town Down Under. Can't really remember much about this reign. I think they had a match against Street Profits, and then they lost against DIY. I would put them in. It's not really memorable. I'll put them in D. Like, I think they're better off without the tag team titles, to be honest. DIY. I'm enjoying what they've been doing with DIY lately and how like they're rebuilding the tag team division a bit, how they're giving it more focus. Their first reign though was very forgettable, but what they've been doing now, I'll at least put them in B. Then we had the Bloodline. I don't know, they did some pretty cool things with the tag team division when the Bloodline were champions, but the focus always felt like it was on Solo and Roman, so they always kind of felt like second place. So I'll put them in C for that. Motor City Machine Guns, they won it on their their third match in WWE. I had to put them in I'll put them in B because they didn't have a long reign. I was kind of surprised how they had them drop to DIY so quickly. But who can say they won the tag team titles on their third match in WWE? I'd have to go, B tier for sure. Then we have the World Tag Team titles with Miz and R-Truth, Awesome Truth. This just did not feel memorable. I don't even. I think they had some. The only match I can remember is them versus AOP. And I think the only reason I remember that match is because oh yeah, they have not. Because it's oh yeah, they have not defended these in a long time, have they? There was nothing really built around them. It just didn't feel that important. But surprisingly, it was better than the second Judgment Day reign with JD McDonough and Finn Balor. And honestly, I'd probably have to put I would put Viking Raiders in C. Just because mostly because I was just really happy that the titles were now off of JD and Finn. But they haven't really done much either. Actually, you know what? We might have to put them in D. And again, I'm not talking about what they've been doing in 2025. But 2024, they're still in the Judgment Day feud where they've been teaming up with Damian. It seems like they're going to get a rematch with Finn and JD at some point, but I don't know. Hopefully they kind of get them away from this a bit. I'd like to see them feud with the New Day going into 2025, but we'll just have to wait and see. Again, this is also just another case of they won the title very late into December. But at the same time, they still didn't do much. So it's not. I wish they would have just had them win the title and then immediately start feuding with someone else. Then we have Lyra Valkyria and it's NXT Women's Champion. I'm trying to remember what. Oh yeah, okay. So she feuded with Blair Davenport, Roxanne Perez, and Lola Vice. I would have to put her in. I'd have to put her name. She had a lot of great matches. Her feud with Roxanne was really fun. That triple threat with Roxanne and Lola at Vengeance Day was really fun. I'd have to put her name. I would have liked to see her have a longer reign. But especially with where Roxanne was during 2024 with the Women's Championship, it's hard to argue if Valkyria had, a long enough reign or not. But she's Intercontinental Women's champion now, so overall I think it was a pretty good reign. The Blair Davenport match, I can't remember that much of, but again, her matches with Roxanne and the triple threat with Lola was really fun, so I'd have to put her in A. Like, I've always enjoyed her as champion, and she had really good programs during the beginning of 2024. I hope that meant she was gonna have a better like 2024 when she was on the main roster, but again, like, I don't know. She had like, she was in Queen of the Ring, Money in the Bank, and then kind of disappeared for a while. But guess what? She's Intercontinental Champion now, so can't really complain all that much. And then Roxanne Perez, NXT Women's Champion, S tier. I mean, this just been such a good reign. Probably the best women's champion. It's I'm kind of surprised how much of S tier. Like the 3 picks in S tier right now are all NXT champions. But it's because like they've been really good when it comes to like booking championship reigns so far, especially with Roxanne, who has like revitalized the women's division in a big bad way. Like all of her matches with Jordynne Grace, Julia, that tag team match with her and Cora versus Julia and Stephanie, they've all been really great. Her match with like Thea Hale was really good too when they had a little program going. Her match with Jada Parker, like overall, she's just done such a good job at revitalizing the women's division with everyone else involved. So I feel like she just has to be S tier. Like, I'm surprised how every single feud she's been in, every single program she's been in, should have easily been like main event level every single night, and for some reason it wasn't. But even then, like, it felt like it, if you know what I mean. Then we have Io Sky as WWE Women's Champion. I don't remember much from this in terms of like 2024. I think she had a match with Michin, and then didn't have another match until her match with Bayley. But I did enjoy the Damage Control feud. I would put it in B because it felt like ever since Bayley won that Royal Rumble all the way to WrestleMania, it was really just where is this gonna go? It really just felt like Io's gonna lose to Bayley, so who cares? Just get us to that spot and then we'll go from there. So she didn't really do much, but the feud was still very memorable. It was still really good. So I'd at least put her in B, even though a lot of her better stuff was in like 2023. And then we have Bayley as WWE Women's Champion. She had really good matches with like Naomi, Stratton, Niven. But again, it's one of those cases where like when Nia Jax won Queen of the Ring, it was kind of like, okay, Bayley's days are numbered. Whenever they have their match, Nia's gonna beat her, and that's just and I feel like they could tell that too, so there wasn't really much leading up to that from what I remember. But again, she had a really good match with like Naomi and Tiffany Stratton at Backlash. I'll at least put her in A, because I feel like when it came to her role in Damage Control, she lost a lot. So it didn't really feel like she was that much of like a threat or a presence in the women's division, but I feel like with this reign, it kind of revitalized her a bit in terms of her standing within the division. And again, she just had really good matches overall. I feel like she definitely earned the A spot. Then we have Nia Jax, and I would put her in A because I think she's done some really good work. Has had some pretty good matches here and there, but I think my biggest problem with what Nia Jax has done in 2024 is that when it came to the Survivor Series War Games build, she didn't feel like a prominent fixture at all. She just kind of felt like Liv Morgan's lackey. Like, it was so based on like Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley that Nia Jax just felt like she was taking a complete backseat. And I think that hurt her reign a bit. I would have to probably put her in B. Like that whole feud overall, I feel like didn't really help anyone, especially Nia. But again, like, she had some good moments here and there. I liked her feud with like Bayley and Naomi. Overall, like the tension with her and Stratton was really fun too. So yeah, I think B is perfectly fine. Then we have Rhea Ripley, 2024 women's world champion. I think the only thing I can remember about this is like her having a match with Ivy Nile and Nia Jax at Elimination Chamber. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy her reign during 2023 as much because it didn't feel like there wasn't that much going on outside of like her feud with like Raquel and like the 5-way women match at Crown Jewel. But she had a pretty good, reign overall. I was surprised that she even beat Becky at WrestleMania. I'll at least put her in A tier. just because I feel like a lot of that build towards WrestleMania, anyways, was more based on Becky overall. So at least put her in A. Then we have Becky, who I would at least put in C, because while her reign wasn't long and she was obviously just a placeover for Liv Morgan to go over someone, to like get the pin on someone, I think she did a pretty good job, holding the championship, being the substitute for Rhea while she was injured. And I think she did a pretty good role at that, so I'd at least put her in C. Hopefully she comes back soon. And then we have Liv Morgan. And this one is difficult because like this one was way, way too involved with like the Rhea feud. And like the very second that we thought we were going to get a break from it, when it came to like the build up of Survivor Series, they pulled the rug from under us and was like, nope, it's still Rhea versus Liv. And I was like, Jesus Christ! At like some point, just move on. And I get like, there's a lot of, I don't know. I don't feel like this feud, like that whole feud, this whole championship reign, did anything for anyone except for Rhea. Like Rhea looked really strong coming out of that, but nobody else looked competent. Like Liv Morgan coming out of this reign of hers does not look good, and it's because of what happened with 2024. I would have to put it in D. Really, it was a messy feud that went on way too long. She didn't have much when it came to like challengers for the title outside of Rhea. Like the only two I can think of is Zelina Vega and Io. And that was over the span of 8 months, I think. Like 6 or 7, I think. Like over half a year. And most of her title defenses were against Rhea Ripley. Like at some point you just need to move on. But they never did, and I think it really hurt the reign overall. Okay, so next up we have Ilya Dragunov as NXT champion. I'm trying to some of his title matches, I believe it was like Trick Williams, Elijah Dragunov, and then Trick beating him for the title. I'll put him in A, because if I were to count like his 2024, his championship reign when it came to like what he did in 2023, it would probably be S tier. But when it came to like 2024, a lot of his stuff felt like it was secondary to like what was going on with Trick and Carmelo. So I would probably put him in A just for that. But he had a lot of great matches, like his match with Trick at Vengeance Day, his match with Tony D'Angelo at Stand and Deliver. But after that, it was like, okay, he's just a placeholder until he has a rematch against Trick. And they did it soon after Stand and Deliver. And he, gave him the title, got called up to the main roster, didn't do much on the main roster, got injured. But hopefully, he comes back stronger in 2025. But when it comes to his NXT Championship reign, it was good, but it was obvious he was just a placeholder for Trick at a certain point. Speaking of Trick Williams, this one is a weird one, because a lot of his championship reign has really just been focused on Ethan Page until, after Deadline. And even before then too, with Rich Holland, but that was not great. I don't know. I enjoyed what he did in December, with the build up with him and Nova Femi and Eddie Thorpe getting involved. I thought that was really fun. The Ethan Page feud too is like, it was pretty good. It wasn't great. But he had some pretty fun matches out of that, like the Fatal 4-Way at Heatwave was really fun. I'd at least say A. He was extremely over when he won the title. And even then has kind of stayed that way ever since. And I don't know, like the Rich Holland feud would probably place him down to a B, but I don't know. I enjoyed the Ethan Page feud. I enjoyed, like what's been going on in December with the title. So it had to put it in A at the very least. And then Ethan Page, this one just really just felt like, okay, when is Trick gonna get the title back? But he's had some good moments, like the Joe Hendry feud was fun, so I'll at least put him in B. B for sure. And then we move on to the WWE Championship with Roman Reigns. And this was, 2024 was very much like, okay, we're about to get off this ride. We've been on the Roman Reigns ride for the last 4 years. We're going to get off of it at some point, right? And you could definitely tell that was the case. He defended the title against Styles, Knight, and Orton in a fatal four-way match, and had a great match with Cody Rhodes afterwards at WrestleMania. I would have to place this. I don't know. Again, if I counted all the the time before 2024 when it came to this reign, he'll definitely be an S tier. I'd have to put him in A tier, just because, despite being the champion, he at times felt like The Rock's lackey during the build to WrestleMania. Like, he had his moments, he stopped him from doing, certain mic work and shit like that. But Roman always kind of felt like he was secondary to The Rock, unfortunately. But again, that match felt really good. It kind of made you forget what was going on for the last few months, and you're just like, this is just such a good match. I would have to put him in A at the very least. Again, if we were counting all the stuff that came before this, he'll definitely be an S. But I'll say A at the very least. And then Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, I'd have to say, is an S tier. I really enjoyed his time as champion. His feuds with Styles, the Logan Paul feud was pretty fun, even though, I don't know what, the reason why, in my opinion, it was a detriment for Logan Paul, not Cody Rhodes, is because it made no sense for Logan Paul, because he was already a champion. And the championship wasn't on the line. But for Cody, it was kind of like, whatever. His involvement with the bloodline stuff was really fun. He never really felt out of place or secondary in that whole thing, in my opinion. And especially, his feud with Kevin Owens has been enjoyable. Like, week in, week out, just really, really fun. So I'd have to put him in S tier. I think he's been doing great as WWE champion. The Kevin Owens feud is still going on, and it's still fun week in, week out, especially with this past week with Kevin Owens facing Rey Mysterio. Just really good. Bringing the winged eagle back. The winged eagle. I don't know. The not the Attitude Era, the new generation belt, with the flaps. Then moving on to the World Heavyweight Championship, we have Seth Rollins. Again, if we were counting what he did in 2023, S tier. 2024, though, he started getting wrapped up in the bloodline stuff. Even though he did really feel important in it, he felt really important. Despite being in there with Roman, Rock, Cody, Seth really stood out in that feud, in my opinion. But other than that, he feuded with Jinder Mahal. He feuded with Jinder Mahal. He had a match with Drew McIntyre that was really fun. And the feud going into WrestleMania was really cool with CM Punk involvement. But he was injured. He was beaten and battered, unfortunately, so we didn't get much out of him. I'd have to say B. If we were counting his 2023 stuff, S tier easily. Because that reign was just really good. I don't care what anyone says, it was really good. But, with him being injured, not being able to do that much, I'd have to say B. Drew McIntyre, the 7-minute reign or whatever, 4 minutes, I don't know. I would at least say C. Just because that moment was so great. And I don't care what anyone says. I know there are people who are pissed off at that. I thought it was great. I thought it was the perfect thing to do with CM Punk getting involved with the cash in. It was just really good. And I think you don't get that satisfaction with the moment without Drew being the champion. If Seth would have retained the title and, CM Punk would have came out, screwed up everything, Damian cashes in the title, I don't think it means that much unless it was Drew. And, he still had a great 2024 anyways. I just feel like Drew's the, win the title, cash in, what's it called? When someone wins a championship and then quickly has to hand it over, drop it to someone else. To be a transitional champion, I think Drew was perfect at it for that moment in time. So I feel like he definitely deserves C just for that. He was the perfect choice to do that kind of move with. And then we have Damian Priest, the man who cashed in on him, and he had a pretty good run. You know, he only held the title for like a couple of months, but he really established himself, in my opinion, as like a main event talent guy with this title reign. He beat Jey Uso, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre, and you know, just him kind of like slowly transitioning himself to be a face during this reign, I thought was a good move too. I'd have to put him in A. I think he's been doing really good. And then Gunther with the World Heavyweight Championship, I'd have to go with A as well. Just because sometimes he just doesn't feel that important as a champion, unfortunately. But he has had some really good feuds, some really good moments. I've loved the story they've been telling him. I love the story they've been telling through him, through this reign of him, you know, correcting the errors of his past. You know, with Randy Orton, he didn't really pin Randy at King of the Ring. He got his one back. Sami Zayn, the last person to pin him, gets his one back. Who else? Cody Rhodes, the guy who eliminated him, you know, at the Royal Rumble, didn't get his win back, but still a great match overall. And then Damian Priest in the Finn Balor triple threat match, he gets the pin on Damian, gets his revenge on that, because, you know, Finn is the reason why Gunther won in the first place. But overall, I've been enjoying this reign. I'm just curious to see where they go from here. Obviously, he's in a feud with Jey Uso right now, which I think is a really good dynamic with Jey Uso and Gunther. You know, I like what they're kind of telling with that. But, you know, when it comes to 2024, even though, again, there are times where he doesn't feel that important, he still, you know, makes sure to give it his all when he goes into the ring. So he definitely deserves an Ace here overall. So these are my tiers so far. You know, we have D tier, we got Tony as Heritage Cup champion, Lexus King, Dragon Lee, Logan Paul, Shinsuke Nakamura, the D'Angelo family, Chase U, Kaden Carter and Kenton Chance, A-Town Down Under, Awesome Truth, Finn and JD, the War Raiders, and Liv Morgan. For C tier, we have Noam Dar, Charlie Dempsey, Fallon Henley, Tony D'Angelo as North American champion, LA Knight, Sami Zayn, Braun Breaker, Kabuki Warriors, Unholy Union, The Bloodline, Becky Lynch, Drew McIntyre. For B tier, we have Kalani Jordan, Chelsea Green, Jey Uso, Jade and Bianca, DIY, Motor City Machine Guns, Io Sky, Nia Jax, Ethan Page, and Seth Rollins. And for A tier, we have Gunther for both his IC and World Heavyweight Championship reign, the Wolf Dogs, the Judgment Day, Lyra Valkyria, Bailey, Rhea, Ilya, Trick, Roman, and Damian. And for S tier, we have Obafemi, Fraxium, Roxanne Perez, and Cody Rhodes. So, you know, tell me where you guys think I went wrong on this list. I think I did pretty well. You know, there's not much I would change when it comes to this tier. Maybe boost up Liv Morgan a bit, but I'm not sure. We'll put her up to C at the very least, because I'm looking like at everyone else and it's like, is it as bad? You know what? It is as bad. Never mind. She's going back to D, and that's, you know, like I think Liv Morgan's great. She's one of my favorite women's wrestlers right now. But God, this reign didn't do nothing for her. Like, she finally gets a long championship reign, and she just kind of feels like a goober, you know, coming out of it. So who knows? But everything else, like, just looking through it, I don't think I'd really change anything about it. But this is where we're going to leave it off. I want to thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you all next time.